You have indicated that you don't believe in systemic racism. What is your definition of systemic racism?
Let me answer the question that you've answered.
Or does it even exist in your mind?
Let me answer the question this way. One of the things I think about, and one of the reasons why I'm on the show, is because of the comments that were made, frankly, on this show, that the only way for a young African-American kid to be successful in this country is to be the exception and not the rule. That is a dangerous, offensive, disgusting message to send to our young people today, that the only way to succeed is by being the exception. I will tell you that if my life is the exception, I can't imagine.
But it is.
But it's not, actually. It's
been 114 years.
Yeah, so the fact of the matter is we've had an African-American president, African-American vice president. We've had 2 African-Americans to be secretaries of the state. In my home city, the police chief is an African-American who's now running for mayor. The head of the highway patrol.
I recently watched The View. Whoopi Goldberg falsely claimed Republicans want to drag the country back on race relation. How can you get your party to stop trying to stop the progression that people are making? Tim Scott was part of this program, and at a certain moment I realized he was even booed by the audience. They go further to discuss these related topics on race and what is happening with these cultural wars.
But you yourself have talked about when the police stopped you.
Absolutely.
So how can you get your party to stop trying to stop the progression that people are making?
Yeah, so
because that's what I complained about when I spoke about. I want you to come out and say, listen, the Republicans have these issues. So
yeah, I think humans have these issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, the issue of discrimination that I have faced, I assume you face as well, is an issue of the heart. It's not Republicans or Democrats. Frankly, both sides of the aisle can do a better job on the issue of race. And frankly, my side of the aisle, I think, is doing a fabulous job of making progress. The question is, how do we measure that progress?
How is that?
Well, let me just give you a couple examples. So when you think about, this is good news. Yeah. So I thought you only had one question, but I'll give you the answer to it anyway. So here's how it works.
That was me talking to you,
okay.
so I'd love that.
I'm gonna lay.
Shall I come next to her?
Come on over here. Come on over here. Let's have a conversation.
Come on, ladies.
Sit, sir. Sit.
Yes. So.
Yes, it didn't end there. Anna suggests the US is racist because there are currently only 3 black senators, but Scott reviews the progress in 10 years we have had about half of all the African Americans who ever served in the Senate. This nation is making measurable progress in real time.
Billionaires a huge tax cut, and that didn't trickle down to the working people.
Well, let's take a look at
if you want to talk about statistical realities, the statistical reality that we can't even argue with is that African Americans are what, 14, 15% of this country?
13%.
And they're 3% of the U.S. Senate. That is a statistical reality.
That is only one statistic that, in actuality, has been improving significantly in the last decade. Let's take a look at the number of African Americans that have served in the Senate in the last 10 years. Mo Cowan from Massachusetts. You have Cory Booker. You have myself. You have Kamala Harris. You have Warnock. So the fact of the matter is that in less than the last decade, we've had about half of all the African Americans who've ever served in the Senate in the last decade, which means that this nation is making measurable progress in...
This is what he said. Now, when you take a look at all the hosts of this show, you will see clearly the kind of mindset they have toward America. When it concerns these topics on racism, I don't always like to have opinions on this much because we often disagree on this. But Sonny Austin, like we know, is often that kind of person. She cannot give a political opinion without always bringing in or attributing these issues with racism. Like we recently saw, they had a segment where she said Kamala Harris ratings are down simply because of her color and she's in America, implying because of racism, the reason she's not popular. So when you see some kind of talking points arising, you should understand where they stand for. And she knows that a lot of people attribute her to race baiting, which is something I have seen with most of these people on the view. Tim Scott expressing himself, I actually like that because there are a lot of things. I don't know if they are actually aware or they just block their brains not to reason at all.
Willing to accept when our own racism is called out. Grant us courage to disassemble the systems, the stories, the mythos that privilege whiteness over all others. Give us your Holy Spirit's wind to call out racism in all its forms, inside our hearts, inside our church, inside our world. Give us the strength and the wisdom and the will to root out white fragility and white supremacy so that they would never again do harm, never again take away, never again kill. Help us to be anti-racist in all that we say, in all that we do, in all that we are. It is time. It is well past time. God of all creation, bless us all with what we need to march on, to live this work of anti-racism today, every day, always.
This is what I'm talking about. When you see the kind of people often expressing themselves on these topics, you don't really need to judge or really go deep into finding out who they really are. At the beginning of this video, you saw this lady, I want to reduce my whiteness. I said it clear, people that often do this, they have low self-esteem. They don't even respect themselves. Yes. Because if you really love who you are, believe in yourself, because they call this group of people, they are this, they are that, deep in you, you know you are not that, you will not be worried. You'll always be fine. You feel free to express yourself the way you want. I understand people often do this because of this ESG. They want to satisfy their employees. You know, most companies, like I saw in the case of Target.
It's just, you have to force behaviors. And if you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team,